Good morning, dear friends. Um, Now I would like to invite all of you to sit upright beautifully and relax our whole body. And we enjoy our breathing while the three sounds of the bell will be invited. And in this moment, we don't need to think about anything. Just enjoy our breathing, and we can offer our presence to ourselves and the people around us. Dear respected Thầy, dear brothers, sisters, and friends, today is the 16th of July 2023. We are in the Ocean of Peace Meditation Hall. Welcome to our day of mindfulness. Now I have butterflies in my stomach because it's my first time sharing a Dhamma talk in English. Thank you. I know that I'm not fluent in English, but I will do my best to share with you what's from my heart. And if I make mistakes, please be compassionate with my English and support me with your smiles. So, as a newly ordained novice, every time I saw my elder brothers and sisters sitting up here and offering a Dhamma talk, I used to wish that I could sit on a podium and share the Dhamma one day too. And now when the Sangha assigned me to offer a Dhamma talk, all I want to do is to run away. Surely it's not comfortable sitting up here and sitting down there. And this it feels hard. And it makes me feel very nervous, and I would rather sit down there. So I find myself a strange creature. I rarely feel satisfied and happy with what I have. When I sit down there, I want to come up here. And when I get up here, I want to sit down there. And I'm sure that this is true for most of us, right? It seems that our happiness is always aimed at something other than what we have in the present. And it's not only wanting or wishing for a particular seat, but we can see its happiness in all aspects of our life. Maybe we think we would be happier if we could wear someone's designer shirt and not the one we are wearing. Or we think we would be happier if our house was bigger than the house we are living in. Or that we would be happier if we had the position and not the job we are doing. And some of us even think that we would be happier if we had a different body than the one we have. And our life can become a journey of constant seeking and searching for something out there. Our peace and happiness are always something out there someday, and not something happening here and now. And this attitude puts us in a state of deprivation and craving, feeling impoverished from within and without. So in our modern times, we have many choices about food, what else? Clothing, shelter, entertainment, employment, and even the right to choose our own partners, right? But there seems paradoxical that the more choices we have, the more disoriented and lost we become. And when we lose our way, we tend to follow the crowd. Consciously or unconsciously, we may believe that belonging to a certain crowd will bring us security, peace, and happiness. And we also believe that it is safer that we are not different from others. And sometimes a differentness, even a good trait or equality, can also make us feel insecure, uncertain, and afraid. So we follow the crowd or the majority. That's why when the crowd is happy, we are happy. When the crowd is sad, we are sad. When the crowd consumes, we consume. When the crowd gets angry, we get angry. And even when the crowd that loves or hates something or someone, we also follow along and love or hate that thing or that person. In our honesty, do we think that we will be truly happy and at peace if we don't understand what our deepest desires in life are? If we don't even understand our strengths and weaknesses, our happiness and suffering, how can others understand and lead us in the right direction? So it's very important that we slow down a bit and listen and understand what is going on in our body and mind. Thầy, our teacher, has taught us the way out is in. And I have realized that I will understand and know how to deal with the outside world by first of all understanding and taking care of what is happening inside me. So I would like to share my experience. One day I was having lunch in the Solidity Hamlet in the broader Hamlet. And after serving food and entering the dining hall, I stood still and experienced a feeling of hesitation. And then I realized that I was looking for something. Instead of finding an empty place to sit down and enjoy my lunch, I look around and find siblings I know and often hang out with, so that we can sit and eat together. And at that moment, I recognized a sort of fear in my heart. So sometimes we seek others, not always to build a connection or do something beneficial. And at times, we seek others because we want to connect someone because we are afraid of being alone and lost. We are afraid of being judged and evaluated by others. Silently, we look for approval from someone or a group of people, one way or another. We want others to recognize our talents, to be impressed our fame or fortune. And we even want others to be aware of our wholeheartedness or generosity, because these things help give us a feeling of being worthy and valuable. While I was feeling hesitated about where to sit, and the clock in the brothers' dining hall chimed, and at that time I returned to my breathing and relaxed my whole body. I smiled and breathed with my fear, my insecurity, and at that moment I no longer felt afraid and lost. To me, it was a miracle that I could recognize the fear in me and call it by its true name. And after the clock stopped chiming, I walked to the table where lay friends were sitting, sat down and had lunch with them, with no fear of being lost among strangers. And I realized that if I can cultivate more moments in which I can stop to listen and understand the whispers, dialogues, and impulses in me, the more stable and in control I would become. Because these whispers and impulses may not be my true needs, but they may come from a place of loneliness, fear, anger, or sadness, or hurt. So sometimes we buy a shirt, not because we really need it. We eat fast food, not because we are hungry. Or we watch a movie or some kind of entertainment online, not because it makes sense. Or we try to force a connection, not because it's necessary and nourishing. But why we do that? We do these things simply because we have a lot of fear and emptiness from within, and we need something outside to fill the void inside. So, unfortunately, the more we grasp, the more we consume, the more the void and the gap expand. And our loneliness, fear, anger, or sadness becomes stronger and more unbearable. I see that a healthy body needs healthy food. Similarly, a healthy mind also needs healthy food and healthy inputs. We cannot become healthy if we continually bring into our body and mind that always stir and trigger the seed of sadness, discrimination, fear, or sadness in us. So, when you are at the monastery, brothers and sisters often share with you the practice of mindful breathing. For example, please turn back to follow your breathing, be aware of your in breath and out breath. And when you hear the bell, return to your breath and smile. Or when you walk, pay attention to the footsteps touching the ground. Or when you eat, pay attention to the taste of the food in your mouth, and so on. And these practices seem very simple, but we practice them diligently in the monastery in our daily life. Because they help us see that we have a habit of thinking all the time, whether it is about the past or about the future. And those thoughts are like waves pushing and pulling us from side to side. And sometimes the wave rises with praise. Sometimes it sinks with disappointment. And sometimes it explodes with anger or jealousy. And sometimes it's lonely or pitiful. Therefore, if we train ourselves to have the habit of following our breath, the habit of being present with what we are doing, and at that time, our body and mind will immediately be reset in the present moment. And in that state of unity of body and mind, it is easier to see what is happening in us and around us. And if we are not able to stop and recognize the objects of our mind, then we will not be able to see clearly the true nature of that object. And if we don't see something clearly, it can cause us confusion. Something vague is difficult to understand, to deal with, or to talk about. Even our love becomes vague and is elusive. And our views are also easily clouded by wrong perceptions. It's like when we are driving on highway so fast, we cannot see everything clearly on the sides of the road. Many good conditions are present, but we cannot touch them, such as the blue sky, or the green tree, or the sunshine, or our loved ones are still there. But not only the external condition that we cannot touch, but also the good conditions are present in our body and mind. Our eyes are still bright, our legs are strong, our teeth don't hurt. But when we are not present, all of that seems to disappear and non-existent, right? How can we see the sunshine if we are immersed in our iPhones? And how can we touch the peace in every step when we are preoccupied with projects and plans? And how can we love our beloved if we don't really have time to listen and understand their pain, and their aspiration. Have you ever asked your loved ones, what is your aspiration? Do you feel that I understand your difficulty and your ambition is enough? Have you ever done that? So I remember once in a Q&A session, a young woman asked a memorable question. She was a member of Peace Work, and she very much wanted to build a community in which there was harmony, equality, non-discrimination. But she always felt that she was easily angry with herself as well as the members of her community when there were problems. And she felt that her reactions were against her own will. And her question was, how can she build a harmonious, equal, and non-discriminative community as she envisioned it? And at that time, I was sitting down there in the audience. And when I heard her question, a sentence from the sutra came to my mind. Once the Buddha taught the Venerable Ananda that you cannot use sand to cook into rice. So you cannot use the mind of lust and anger to bring about the purity of the monastic. Well, to put it simply, it's like we can only make bread with flour, but we cannot make bread with stone, right? And similarly, if we are only filled with anger, sadness, and fear in our body and mind, what materials do we use to love and take care of others? Do we use our anger and fear to take care of others? Or can we use our insecurity to create peace in the community? That is very paradoxical, isn't it? Yet there are many of us have been doing just that. We use our business to take care of the people that we love. We bring restlessness and craving to our service. We bring our wounds and hurts to build a relationship. So whether the outside world can get better every day or not, it depends entirely on how our inner materials are manifesting. So let us listen one sound of the bell. So, dear friends, I often ask myself, what is my deepest desire in life? Because I find that if I don't find out what my deepest desire in life is, society or the environment around me will create and define my desire according to what they want or desire. And I see this very clearly whenever I go online to search for Buddhist teaching materials. There are many good things for me to learn, such as articles, lectures from great teachers, original scriptures for comparison or Buddhist dictionary, etc. Or when I look for information on science, the brain, or psychology, there is also a wealth of information. And I am very grateful that today's technology gives me the opportunity to access and learn these things much more easily. But I also noticed that when I'm sad or when I go online without a clear purpose, I see many advertisements, videos, and TikToks with catchy titles. And sometimes I think, oh, just click on it and check it out. It will only take me for a few minutes, it's okay. And you know, then before I knew it, an hour or more has passed by. I believe that you had experience, yeah. And looking back, I realized that these videos watered my loneliness, desire, craving, and a sense of lacking and emptiness instead of educating me. So when we know what we need, it's like an anchor for us to actively reach out and learn outside things. But when we don't know what we need, what happens outside will be active, stirring up the seeds in us and creating in us the desire to consume as what society wants. For example, we may think that, oh, this perfume makes me more confident, or this shirt makes me feel worthy, or this car makes me feel classy, or this song speaks to my mood, and so on. And sometimes we don't know those things that gradually make us who we are. They shape us and our desire, so that when we feel empty empty inside, instead of coming back to listen and taking care of our feelings and emotions, we continue to search for them. We keep looking and feeling lacking, and so we keep looking. It is a vicious cycle with no way out. And the same is true in terms of human communication in this time. When in contact with people around us, if we are not aware of and do not take care of our feelings and perceptions, in a conversation, we are easily swept away by emotions of joy and sorrow in the other person. Especially when we come in a group of people, what the crowd gives out in words, actions, and thoughts will be a food that enters us. And in Buddhism, that is called collective consciousness as food. Therefore, the choice of a healthy living environment or a community with practice, understanding, and love is extremely important, because every day, whatever happens in that environment, we absorb it into our own consciousness, and it will trigger the seeds in our consciousness to manifest, and it will form our thinking and way of life. So we may have had this experience after listening to someone talk about a third person for a while. We also form perceptions about that person. form feelings of love or hate for that person, even though we have never met or worked with that person. And when we actually met that person, we tend to bring the preformed perceptions and assumptions about them to treat them. And then we no longer approach that person as they are, right? So if we don't have the desire to stop, to listen, to understand ourselves, every day of our lives can be put in many different conditions. From the objects we come into contact with, Facebook, TikTok, shopping, or conversation. And those inputs stir up the seeds in our mind. And whatever kinds of seeds are stirred, they will sprout and grow. So it's very important that we take care of our feelings, perceptions, and the seed in us, because what kind of seed sprouts, grows, and bears fruit in us. And that is the fruit that we will reap, and those around us will also receive. In short, the input affects the output, and the output affects the input. So when I was a novice, I was taught that I must to practice taking care of the seeds in my mind. And once I asked my mentor, how can I know how many seeds are in me? And what types of seeds are there for me to take care of? At that time, I don't really know. And she just smiled and said, let's look at the manifestation of your body, speech, and mind every day. You will know what kinds of seeds are present in you that need to be nurtured and taken care of. And during the practice, I gradually realized that how important that teaching is. And I try my best to apply it in order to nurture happiness and transform suffering deep within. So I really like the image that our teacher often taught us. Our mind is like the fertile ground. And we don't really know all the seeds that lie dormant in the ground, but we can totally see and recognize them once they sprout and manifest on the surface. And if you have been to Deep Monastery in the spring, you will clearly see what I am trying to say. In the hot season, the trees dry up, and there are not any flowers at that time. But in the spring, on the way from here to the gate, every few days, we can see a different kind the flower blooming. There are hundreds of thousands of different kinds of flowers manifest. And spending the spring here for the first time surprises and excites me a lot. And Mother Earth is a miracle. Mother Earth preserves and nurtures all the seeds and waits until the conditions are right for them to manifest. And the same goes for our store consciousness, which is called the mind earth. So store consciousness is called the mind earth because in it there are also many seeds that are stored and maintained. Seeds of joy, peace, or love, or seeds of pain, anger, fear, or jealousy. And they are present in all of us. And when these seeds, And when this is sprout into plants, a flower may sometimes manifest in this area of consciousness. Maybe the flower of joy, peace, or forgiveness. And this consciousness is called my consciousness. And sometimes another plane will manifest in this my consciousness. Can be pain, anger, or fear. And the work of a practitioner is that by the way of breathing, walking, sitting, or listening to the bell, we invite the seed of mindfulness to grow and be present in this area of my consciousness. And when mindfulness is lit up on this level of my consciousness, it has the function of recognizing all that is happening up here. And the energy of mindfulness will embrace these manifested objects. The energy of mindfulness is cultivated by the true presence of our body and mind. Help us see these objects more clearly. Joy and peace becomes deeper. And we also become calmer to see our pain, anger, or fear more clearly. And as we are calmer and more aware, we can look deeply into that object and understand the true nature of our problems much more easily and thoroughly. And then it will bring us insight, understanding, love, and then transformation. So our transformation with a certain pain and suffering should be based on understanding and compassion. It should not be based on analytical reasoning, fighting, or elimination. And I would like to share one of my experiences from the practice. So I love to buy shoes a lot. And there are times I have many pair of shoes. I buy them, but I don't wear them. I think I have to have a pair of shoes for work, another pair for going to the Sangha classes, another pair for hiking, and yet another pair for going to the retreat outside, and so on. And those are all justifiable excuses. Do you agree with that? Yeah. Gradually, I see why my life is not as simple as I want to be. And in one session of walking meditation with the Sangha, I could feel the softness and comfort in the pair of shoes I was wearing. Suddenly, I had a feeling of self-pity. And at that time, I continued to walk and recognize that mental state in me. I was not having any problems with any of my monastic brothers and sisters at that time. And I was in a safe and peaceful environment. But then why do I have such a feeling of self-pity? So walking for a while, I realized that in the comfort of the shoes I was walking, I recalled my difficult childhood and what my family had gone through in the past. Back then, my family was very poor, and I only had one pair of shoes for my gymnastics school for the entire 4 or 5 years. And I grew bigger, and my feet could not fit in those anymore. But because my parents didn't have money to buy me new shoes, I still had to wear them. And I remember one day I came back from my gymnastics class, and my feet were very sore and swollen. My gymnastics teacher told the whole class to jog around the school that day, and my shoes were too tight, pressing on my feet and causing me a lot of pain. And when I got home, I sat by the well, took off my shoes, washing my feet, and the tips of my toes were bloody and so painful. And I still see this image of myself sitting alone by the well, looking at my shoes, and and feeling extreme self-pity. And that feeling of self-pity made me angry and hateful towards my shoes. And I also got angry with my mom at that time because I thought that she didn't take care of me like my friend's mother. And at that time, I took my shoes and threw them in the bushes and cried. But after I finished crying, I had to get up and retie the shoe and wash them for my next class. So while I was breathing and walking mindfully, I had an insight that why I felt self-pity and why I had a strong desire to buy new shoes. And at that moment, a line in one of Tay's poems came to me. With each step, a gentle wind blows. With each step, a flower blooms. And I realized that my peaceful first steps today are made of many different conditions. And at that moment, I was no longer a child who acted foolishly and harbored many resentments from the past. And I realized that the difficulties in the past are also present, contributing to my peaceful first step today as I am embraced in the heart of the Sangha. And then I feel that I can love and accept my parents' hardships, as well as the foolishness and sadness of the child in me. And the pair of shoes I'm wearing, along with my peaceful first steps in the present moment, is like medicine that heals the painful and cramped shoes in my childhood. And I realized that if I am fully here in the present moment, I will have a chance to recognize, look deeply, understand, and liberate past hurts and constraints. So I see that in our daily life, we tend to accept joy, peace, happiness, or a good thing easier. But we want to run away or get rid of the negative mental formations, such as pain, anger, or fear. So we can learn to be fully present and equanimous with whatever it is with mindfulness. And when we stop criticizing and judging our own clumsiness and mistakes and those around us, we realize that these negative attitudes and behaviors can have a root of misperceptions. So instead of cut or get rid of the weeds, we can stop and recognize our impulses as signals that underground. And because there may be the roots of misperception or the painful memories about our past, by our past. So behind the angry words, if we listen deeply, we will gain sympathy for ourselves and others. That growing up was very difficult, with constant struggle to survive and rise above poverty, or behind the behavior, it seems unkind or discomforting. If we look deeply, we will see a child full of regrets and wounds, and who is in need of our love, sympathy, and support. So we need to make time to invest in our spiritual life for this kind of understanding and compassion and peace to flourish. If we rush to search and adorn our life with external things, then our spiritual life will be shallow and impoverished. So when we can eat delicious food, but we don't have the ability to look deeply enough to see and feel grateful for the all conditions that have come together and have the wonderful meal manifest in front of us. The rain, the sun, or the hardships of the worker, or even the sacrifices of others so that we can live. Or we may be driving a luxurious car, but we cannot listen and understand what is the pain or the aspiration of our loved ones sitting next to us. So, dear friends, what I want to share in today's how we can nurture and grow the energy of mindfulness in our daily life by basic mindfulness practice. Pay attention to our steps, pay attention to our breath, and learn to be truly present in the present moment as much as possible. We can all see that when we are truly present, we will know what is good to plant and nurture so that they can grow and become stronger. And we will be able to recognize and look deeply into the roots of our suffering and then transform them with our understanding and love. Even though your environment out there is difficult and challenging for you to practice, But I trust that with compassion for yourself, you can do it. You can use your intelligence, your creativity to apply the mindfulness practice in your daily life. For example, when going from the parking lot to your office, you can apply the practice of mindful walking. And if the first steps of the days are peaceful, you are calmer and settled to face whatever happens. Or you can, they always teach us, you can program the bell of mindfulness on your computer or smartphone, and every quarter or an hour, the bell sounds so that you have a chance to stop and breathe and relax. So, as I shared in the beginning, many conditions in our modern time are favorable and advantageous. It is a remarkable development in many facets of life. But if we don't know how to practice, how to slow down, to look deeply into what we are bringing into our body and mind, it is likely that those things that are supposed to be progress and development may come back to harm our body and mind as individual and as a society. The values that we have will guide us on our way of living. If we put an emphasis on money, money will guide our life. If we put an emphasis on consumption, material things will guide us. If we put an emphasis on human love, then human love will guide us. And if we place great importance on peace and happiness for ourselves and our loved ones, peace and happiness will be our choice in everything we do. So there are many choices. And it is almost important how we choose. How we can take each breath, each step. How we interact with people and everything around us, so that we can cultivate a clear and steady awareness in order for understanding, love, and peace to grow and deeper day by day. So, thank you for your patience and listening. Now please sit back upright and relax and listen 3 sounds of the bell.